Thank you, Charlotte. Hello, I'm Kate Hutchison. I run Bell Publishing and I have a background in radio and TV and moved into publishing a few years ago. I set up Belle Kids as our children's imprint, and these on the screen are some of our books and merchandise. We do audiobooks, video games, activity books, greetings cards, and there's also a craft book on the way. And what I'm going to talk about is how we're currently taking The Adventures of Captain Bobo, which is a niche Scottish picture book series, and turning it into a national brand by producing an associated radio series. The first radio play with storyteller John Sessions went out nationally last week, and the series runs for 10 weeks until the end of November. I'll cover what was involved, it's quite a complex process, and also focus on how it links back to book sales, the all-important. First, a little bit about the books. Captain Bobo is a gently humorous series about a captain, his comical crew, and their adventures on board a paddle steamer. The Sunday Times this weekend referred to it as gentle, comforting fare for grown-ups as well as children. The series is loosely based on the stories of a real captain and a real ship, the world's last ocean-going paddle steamer, the Waverley. She sails to ports all around the UK. And initially, the book series was set in Scotland, and the books worked well there in both Waterstones and W.H. Smith's. But it was always difficult to build interest further afield. So we decided to follow the Waverley's route and take the book series around the UK. So future stories will transport readers to new locations including Snowdon, the Western Isles, Liverpool, the Jurassic Coast and London. And we're working on London now, and this is one of the draft spreads for the book, which will be out in January. But we wondered, well, was there something more we could do to change the dynamic? As an ex-radio producer, I wondered if audio might be the thing to propel the series forward. On the plus side, we had plenty of story ideas, and we own all the rights, which means we have maximum flexibility. And we were already producing audiobooks. But what about radio? As well as audiobooks, could we actually produce a radio series? Because if we could do that, it would be fantastic PR. And could we interest a national radio station broadcasting it, given that the series visits the various places around the UK? And then could we interest regional local broadcasters in the different locations also? And lastly, this was a long-held ambition of ours, could we do it all in Gaelic as well? Maybe even interest a community broadcaster in running a Gaelic language version. We began to focus our thoughts around the idea and put together a show outline with some sample episode ideas and a draft budget. Then we drew up a list of potential partners to pitch to. There's only actually one national radio children's service in the UK, and that's the commercial station Fun Kids. It's a popular DAB service with a weekly reach of 650,000 adults and children across all its platforms. And it turned out they were interested and keen to support what we were proposing. So now we had our main partner on board, at least in principle. And we also reached out to regional stations around the UK. Several were enthusiastic and 7 wanted a Gaelic language version. All good. But what about funding? We looked, but there's very little funding available for kids' radio programmes. But we thought there might just be a case to be made for some funding for our idea from the Audio Content Fund, as they support programmes with a social purpose that might not otherwise be made. In terms of the actual pitch, it's a fairly significant amount of work to put the pitch together. Broadcasters, they have to provide letters of commitment to transmit the programme at specific times and dates well before the pitch is made. But nonetheless, we were beginning to believe we had a good story to tell. And so with what became 17 broadcasters on board, we went ahead and formally pitched the series to the fund. Great. We waited. The coronavirus happened and we waited a bit more. The fund was understandably diverted into helping commercial stations take on important COVID-specific projects during lockdown. And so it took a while for them to get back on track. And in the meantime, we were beginning to focus more carefully on everything that we had to do if we were successful. This is the list. We waited a couple of months to hear back, but finally, on July 15th, we were delighted to hear the project would shortly be given the green light. And after another 2 weeks, the formal announcement was made and we could set to work. That was now the beginning of August, leaving us with 9 weeks to deliver. So we had to get cracking, but we found that everyone we worked with was engaged in the project and really got behind the challenge to help deliver. The first broadcast on radio went out last Thursday at 3:15 p.m. and will continue weekly until the end of November. And I'd like to play how this is a trailer that Fun Kids ran to trail the series on air.
Prepare yourself for action on the water every Thursday as we go on The Adventures of Captain Bobo.
It's not like her to wave like that. There must be something wrong.
Based on a real captain and his ship the Waverley, this series of capers takes us on a journey around the British Isles.
There was a loud bang, followed by a grinding noise.
Join the captain and his friends as they go on adventures, overcome tough challenges, and work together to save the day.
When Tufty saw Pinky, he shrieked a mighty and leapt up in the air with fright.
Hear The Adventures of Captain Bobo every Thursday at 3:15 on Fun Kids.
Lovely job. And here are some of the stations that were actually involved. The marketing was crucial to the success of the project, as we weren't just trying to push the radio series, but we were also trying to promote and sell more books. So there are actually 5 different marketing strands involved. There was radio, John Sessions, books, audiobooks, and social media. So radio was actually our key building block. 10 weeks of prime-time children's slots throughout most of Q4. And regional radio stations are repeating the series in this quarter and again at the start of 2021. Some stations are even linking in with local bookshops and promoting the books on air. And some schools are already engaging with book projects associated with the series. And of course, there's John Sessions. We wanted to get John to narrate, not just because he's well known, although that's a key component in trying to engage bookshops and anyone else for that matter, but also because he's a brilliant character actor with a personal connection to the story's origins and the ship. And thankfully he loved Captain Bobo and happily agreed to do a range of newspaper and radio interviews. This isn't always the case with celebrities. We've had different experiences in different projects and every situation is different, but John was fantastic, really. And then in terms of the books, our existing picture books, there's only 2 so far, have had a new lease of life with the radio series and connection with John Sessions. Special stickers with Fun Kids and John Sessions have been provided to bookshops, and at the same time we're beginning to market our new London-based book, which is out this January. And audiobooks, we're also making the series available as audiobooks on the dedicated children's audio platform, Cloudaloud, and actively promoting Buy the Book to Read Along. It will also be up on a range of streaming platforms and Audible. In terms of social media, we work with 216 on our campaigns, and we're promoting the books by linking up with the various broadcasters' social media sites and planning some specific targeted promotion like this. This is a competition which is called Where is Captain Bobo Sailing to Today? It's also on Cloudaloud, which launches tomorrow, October the 1st, as a subscription service. And other PR placements that we had, here are a few of them that we achieved in the immediate run-up to the launch, and there is more in the pipeline. There's obviously, we there's parenting and children's education platforms as well, like Absolutely Education and School Run. They're running pieces linked into the series. And we provided the Sun's new children's supplement called The Moon with a special story and a feature that ran over 2 pages. The slide actually misses the Sunday Times review on the culture section last weekend, saying that whilst it's aimed at 4 to 8-year-olds, grown-ups will also lap up this gentle, comforting fare, ideal for lockdown. And the Gaelic simulcast has attracted additional media attention and opened up a new market for us, as there's growing interest in teaching Gaelic in schools in Scotland now. We even have a well-known radio station in Nova Scotia taking the series too. I just want to end by mentioning BBC Alba TV. The main Gaelic news broadcast ran an item about Captain Bobo and interviewed Gaelic narrator Gillibrichi Macmillan. It was a great 2-minute feature, partly filmed on board the Waverley, and they even ran this clip with the new music from the radio series cut to some illustrations from the book. Here it is. Anyway, so in conclusion, I think it's clear that if you think laterally about your business, there might just be opportunities out there for children's publishers that are waiting to be taken up. And here are the upcoming books. I'll leave you with an image of these from the series. In terms of campaign metrics, obviously we're just starting out, but they will be measured in terms of number of stations on board and engaged and linked into the local community, how many bookshops actually take the books, and how many books we will have sold as a result. So we look forward to seeing what happens. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Kay. That was really, really interesting. I've got a few questions for you here. My first question is actually about regional content, and because obviously you're talking about localized content. How important is that, is my first question. And second of all, how much interest is there out there for local content?
Well, I think there is interest in local content. Obviously, our books did very well in Scotland because they were based there. And actually, you do find that Scottish people are very engaged in things that are about their history and about their, quirks as well, the kind of character of the Scottish people. What's been wonderful about this radio series is we've been able to reach out to different communities. We have a really fantastic excuse to reach out to different communities, in Wales, and basically we're going to all these different places, Jurassic Coast and Snowdon. And actually, we've been able to actually look to find channels in those regions that are interested in the programming. And I think one of the things, and Giles mentioned it as well, is this thing about actually literally having a connection with the local community and the local people, doing something which is relevant for their area, that they can actually it's more meaningful for them, it's more real. And I think what's been great about this, it's meant that they have something that they can promote and use themselves to help them and their stations. So it's a kind of win-win, which has been a good thing. I hope that answers the question.
And for our ticket buyers in Scotland, or perhaps people over here who are looking to work more with market, are there any particular places that you would say, where should they talk? Is it Scottish Book Trust? Is it bookshops? Is it radio stations? How do they use those organisations in Scotland to reach Scottish readers?
Well, I think, all of the above, in fact. I think you have to find what's exactly right for you. My suggestion would be to do what we did right at the beginning, because obviously we haven't been running that many years. We literally picked up the phone to all of these organisations, arranged a Zoom call, got ourselves, and we educated ourselves on whether we'd fit in, what they thought we'd have to do before we actually joined up. But I think all of those, there are lots of good. I mean, we've found the Gaelic Book Council really helpful. Publishing Scotland is an amazing organisation, and there are some brilliant people up there that can help connect you in terms of PR. And I think that's another thing that's quite good to do. And it's always better to actually work with people who are experts in their area. And, I think they appreciate that you don't think you can do everything yourself and you need their expertise.
I have a question here from Elise Carmichael. What drove the decision for Gaelic and how did the translation process work?
Okay, I'll talk about the translation process first. The translation process was really about, again, I was sort of saying, speaking to the people who knew. So we spoke to the Gaelic Book Trust, Book Council, and basically they were saying, well, we know people who are interested in doing this, and they said they actually got us to look at all these different people that we could work with. Now, the reason we wanted to go with Gillibrici Macmillan is not only is he he's got a beautiful voice, but he translates, he's got a beautiful voice, he teaches Celtic and Gaelic studies in Glasgow University, and also he had appeared in Outlander, and a slightly odd connection. I mean, all of the people that we have dealt with who are voicing our books, Bill Patterson, John Sessions, Gillibrici, they've all appeared in Outlander. And we just sort of thought, actually, if we could get someone who could not only translate, but also as a narrator, he's incidentally a fantastic singer as well. And he had lots of connections that he could bring to the kind of ensemble, if you like. So basically, we engaged him for translations, and then we engaged him for the narration. And we will definitely be going on to work with him on other things in future. It's been a very good connection. The Gaelic connection came about because the captain, who the stories are based on, actually, I have to hold my hands up. It was actually based on my father, who was a very well-known captain in the Clyde. And I grew up with hearing Gaelic accents or Gaelic accents, and also hearing the stories of the Western Isles, the islanders that he worked with and who worked for him and on board. And we went a lot on holiday to the Outer Hebrides, and it was just such an important part of our heritage and history. We'd always wanted to do that because we felt very much part of it.
Someone has said congratulations on the series so far. Obviously it is lovely, and they ask, how big were the risks to build something which was relatively small into a sprawling radio series?
I don't think we're very good at worrying about the risks, and I think we always imagine that we can do anything. But as you heard, I mean, there were a couple of times where, when we were doing sort of 12-hour days, trying to complete everything and make sure everything was in place and the contracts for the music, actually choosing the right music, we did think, gosh, we really have bitten off more than we could chew. But we just worked at it. And I think because I'm from radio and TV, and I'm used to working, or was in my past career used to working to deadlines, and there was no way of saying, oh, sorry, we can't make it. We just had to find a way through. I think the risks are, they disappear when you're enjoying doing something so much, and you can see that actually you are connecting with people in a really kind of wholesome way. I mean, they're lovely, gentle stories, but people have really responded to them. We found Strathmore, who actually did the recording sessions, they were wonderful in the sound design and working with me on what sound effects and things, because I wanted to source authentic sound effects from both Snowdon Railway, which is in the book, and also from the Waverley. But I just found that I think when something's going well like this, people come to you and add to the kind of finished piece. So I don't know if that answers the question, but risk taking, I think, is something that we've only thought about now. And it's only looking back you think that was a bit crazy, you know.
Well, and as you say, there's lots of lovely people involved, and the fantastic John Sessions. I mean, everybody knows, well, most people know who he is. How did you get him in? Do you have any tips for people who work in audio or want to work in audio on finding a great actor or narrator?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you have to trust yourself. I mean, a lot of people said to me when we had Richard E. Grant for the first Tigeropolis book, how did you get Richard E. Grant? And I said, I phoned up the agent and began a conversation. Luckily, it was before he was an Oscar nominee, so his fees were not so as they probably are now. But I think you just have to, it's kind of this, you know, you just have to get out there and ask the question. If you know someone is going to be potentially right for a project, and in this instance, we had already worked with Bill Patterson on Hurricane Hutch's Top 10 Ships of the Clyde, but it was actually, Bill had actually sort of said, oh, John would be really good at that, and we immediately were behind it because he was born in Largs, he loved the ships, was brought up with, knew all the ships, and knew basically the Waverley very, very well. And I think we just sort of thought, if you can get something that really speaks to the person that you're going for, I think you've got a very good in and a likelihood that will come to be.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask a little bit about how the series has been received. I mean, it's fantastic that you were in the Sunday Times last weekend. That's fantastic. Do you submit to that, or did they just hear about you? Did you know it was going to happen in advance?
Well, I think this is the beauty of having so many partners on board. So we've got radio partners, we've got audiobook partners, we've got John Sessions, we've got Scotland, and we've got national. Now, Fun Kids have been great, but what you have to do is you have to try lots of different things. So I was keen on the education and the school run and that kind of thing, because it's for books. But actually the collective of PR that we were able to get through John and through Fun Kids actually, we were encouraging them to reach out to their connections as well. And I have to be honest with you, we did actually have a couple of very big approaches, but actually we had to turn them down because, you have to take into consideration, do they want to do publicity in that publication? Even though that was great, sort of PR, we actually had to turn down a couple of really big opportunities, and you just have to respect that. So you do everything you can. Obviously, we wanted to get a huge newspaper. We did very well in Scotland because it comes from Scotland. It originates in Scotland, and there are lots of funny Scottish quirks in the series. But I think it's more sort of human comedy. It's funny. It's really universal. So coming back to your question, I think it's the team, and I'm very open to allowing other people to look for their own publicity outlets to get the name out there, and I fully expect that there will be more to come that route.
That's fantastic. And tell us, you mentioned about funding earlier, and I know that a big issue, well, not an issue, but a challenge is those funding applications, which, as we all know, can be very tricky. How did you find them, and what did you learn doing those applications, and was there anything that really helped you get funding for your project?
I think To be honest with you, I think you're absolutely right. I think those pitches are kind of an art. You have to get someone who is in, and my business partner Richard he loves doing them because he understands that all of the things were there with our project, but you have to bring out the social side of what you're doing and the impact that it could bring out, the connection it could make to local communities. I mean, we have you didn't see the slide, unfortunately, but, we have Dunoon Community Radio, Butte Radio, we have Ardrossan Radio, Kirkcaldy, Nevis, Arran, all these radio stations who, are probably finding it quite difficult, but they love this opportunity because they're able to get on board and get behind it. So it's really a bit of a win-win.
We've nearly run out of time. We have one final question. Somebody wants to know, are you a Captain Pugwash fan?
Well, I do remember Captain Pugwash, and it is a bit sort of para-handy Captain Pugwash. I mean, you can see it's similar, and actually I love going to Rye, where Captain Pugwash author is from. But I think there's just something, I mean, it's very UK, isn't it? This idea of the sea communities, the coastal communities. And yes, I mean, of course I love it. It's part of my growing up.
Thanks, Kay. I think from your talk, as with Giles' talk, you've both left me feeling quite optimistic. And I think what you've really communicated, the importance to be brave, go after what you want, and the importance of making connections and letting those partners run with the project and promote it and use it, and because ultimately that benefits you as well as them. Does that make sense? Do you think that's right?
I just think that what you've said there about allowing people to really perform their function as part of the team is so important, and it's so relevant to Captain Bobo, because the Captain Bobo books are all about teamwork, because the boat, they always save the day no matter what the challenge is, and the different generations work together. But actually, I think it's all about allowing people to have the opportunity to help themselves, and it helps the whole by helping all the separate bits, and the benefit is much greater than the sum of the parts. So I think that's right.